I've got 26 years of service. I did years in DeSoto. I was a commander of Festus for 3 years. I was actually there 7. Been Jefferson Barracks, Fort Leonard Wood, been all over. Afghanistan, to me, is real. The average Afghan is you and I. I guarantee you they're not stupid. They may be ignorant because their education system isn't as good or great as ours. They don't have the opportunities. But they're good people. I made a lot of good friends. They'll work hard. They do things. You see in the media a lot of different things portrayed. But they weren't out there with Eddie Boyer building orphanages, these Afghans, teaching them how to use block and concrete tools and different things. And they're excited about it. And they want security and they want to learn. They're hungry for knowledge. They want this product. They want an economy. And they want us there. Even though you see in Kabul all the way in east, I'll show you that, where there may be a car bomb, and there was bombers outside the gate, we got rocketed at night, but we know who they are. They're a small group of people. They're not that city. They're not the average Afghan. The average Afghan is a good person. This is a little bit hard to see right now, but what I'm trying to depict here, this is out of a C-130 window, or no, it's not. That's out of a little plane that a civilian contractor had there that we flew in every once in a while, but it's mountainous. Barren, desolate, mountainous country. If you didn't see the mountains, this is out of a C-130, a Canadian C-130 I flew in. It's flat. The terrain is flat and barren. And that's what you see in most of Afghanistan. Where there's a little bit of water, they'll grow things. Or they'll run canals and do that. I apologize, I don't have a laser pointer, but if you look, I'm going to point with my finger here, but if you look to the top right, you'll see Kabul and Bagram. You hear about those on the news. That's the capital of Afghanistan. All those little stars are Americans. When I was there, NATO only owned the north and the west, and the Americans owned the east and the south. Kandahar, down here at the bottom, you heard of Kandahar. Well, that little star all the way over there on the left, which is really closer to the Iranian border than that, Farah. And I spent 14 and a half months I was gone. I spent 355 days in country, and I spent 310 of those days right over there on that Iranian border with just 100 of us. Bagram has about 10,000 troops. Kandahar had about 5,000. They've changed over. Well, there was 100 of us out there by ourselves. The only way to get there was fly. That's why you could see those shots of aerial photograph. Farah, Afghanistan has a lot of heritage. There's a giant mud castle called the Citadel that was in mud ruins, but it was built by Alexander the Great in 320 BC. It was one of his last stops there. They've redone part of this up here. This has never survived that long. But see the wall? It's nothing but mud ruins now. At one time it was mud brick. And when you stand right behind this and look inside there, whoop, I went too far, excuse me. Right back in the corner was the king's mud castle. And people lived this is inside. People lived all through here with their animals. There's a canal right outside they got their water out of. That was in 320 BC. When we got there just a year ago, the group right before I got there, this was full of munitions. The things they use, IEDs, improvised explosive devices. The Russians left that country with 107 rockets, hand grenades, everything just everywhere. They hauled truckloads out of here that people had hidden in there and blew it up. And this is the same thing through there. Just a massive mud castle. So that's Farah. Farah's been there since Alexander the Great in 320 BC, if not longer. And that's where I lived for 310 days. You'll hear me say, I'm talking a little fast because I won't have a lot of time. Somebody have to time hack me because I'll probably talk all day if you let me. But you'll hear me use the term PRT. Well, that's what it is. The military uses acronyms for everything. I mean, people look at me when I start talking acronyms. But if I say PRT, it's a Provincial Reconstruction Team, and that's what I was a part of. 120-man group, soldiers, women and men. And you have civil affairs, you have force protection, MPs, you have engineers, you have signal guys. So sets our satellite up. God bless the USA and our satellites because I could email home every day. I had secret computers on my desk for military. We have so much technology. And out there in the middle of nowhere, I can still do that. But the PRT is just set to build that area and to build that government. This is a little bit hard to see. But the city of Farah, you can see those mud huts all the way up around the top. And this was the PRT. That's where I lived. The reason they sent me there is they wanted this added on, and I added on this area. I doubled the size. It's actually 175 meters by 200 meters. Basically 175 yards by 200 yards is where I lived for 365 days till we added on. This was the Special Forces. This is our dirt runway, and that's how we got everything. That's how we got in and out. That's how we got everything. This, believe it or not, I'll show it to you on a picture, is a highway on our maps. Well, the highway is nothing but a gravel strip a dirt road, but they're highways to them because the United States finally, 50 miles from here, they're doing ring road at one asphalt road in our whole province of 18,000 square miles. And it's all dirt. It's all dirt roads. You can see the combination of buildings we had. We actually had one of the better PRTs. Some of them didn't have buildings like that. This was only built 2 years ago. But you can see we still used a lot of tents and things like that. Another shot of the PRT, you can see where I added on helipads because everything we required was for aerial. It's the only way we can get anything. I saw one American helicopter the whole time I was there because I was NATO. I was ISAF, International Security Assistance Force. So we got Spanish medevacs. We got Spanish helicopters or different countries, mainly Spain. Hard to see the flags and the mountains in the background, but we flew the American flag, the Afghan flag's in the middle, and this big green one is the ISAF flag, the NATO flag. And then, if you notice, we had to fly the Missouri flag. That's what's up there. See that Missouri flag right there underneath that Afghan flag. But you couldn't do that all the time, but every once in a while we would run it up the pole. And I regret they're at half-mast. That happens in war. And that was just one of the shots I had, but they fly at half-mast when we lose somebody. This is my room. I want to show you just real quick. The military does take care of you. They want you to talk home. They want you to send emails. They want you. A good soldier is happy. Good soldier knows his family's okay. A good soldier eats and sleeps well. Doesn't always work that way. Because when you're out for days, you don't sleep well and you don't eat well, but it's there if you want to. And the sleep you just live without. That's a part of life. But I had a computer. Somebody had actually paid for this group before us to have a satellite, touch a satellite, and they ran civilian internet all through our barracks. So that wasn't the military paid for it, but a civilian did that. So it was quite a deal. But I lived in that room for 310 days. This is what the PRT looked like if you're down inside. We're getting ready to go on a mission that day. We'd take off on missions for 4 or 5 days, maybe a day, no matter where it went. And we'd line them up. We would do all of our rock drills and our battle drills, and we'd go test fire and do everything, get our weapons hot, and we'd take off for however many days we were out. But I walked that area many a time right there. I had to throw this one in because in Afghanistan there's no lights. A few of them have generators, and the town had a few lights strung through it, but when it is dark outside, the Milky Way is so beautiful. The stars, I would sit out there at night and just be unreal because it was so dark. But you see that full moon. I just walked out of the mess hall after eating supper one night, and it was the winter time, and here come that full moon up over those mountains. But you see those mountains, this is the middle of the day. I lived in southwest Afghanistan. It's just like southern Arizona and Utah. It's barren, dry, desolate. That's not fog. That's not clouds. That's dust. And that's what dust was. It'd be days like this where you would breathe it because you had to, but you couldn't see the mountains. And you saw the picture. This is from almost the same spot. That's the mountains. The next day, there it is. You can't even see the thing because it's so dusty. They have 100 days of wind. The airfield was right outside, and that was our lifeline. This is right outside the wall. The mountain you saw is just right behind us here. I was standing inside that wall and looked at the mountain where there's the airfield. The airfield's a dirt strip, but you know our C-130s fly on dirt strips. They're wonderful planes. Been flying since the 50s. They do a great job for us there. But they had a civilian contractor called Blackwater, and that's actually the day I left out of Bagram, not knowing where Farah, Afghanistan is, where I'm going. I got in that little plane, and I flew for 4 hours, 3 hours, and voila, I ended up out here in the middle of the desert. Well, the only American helicopter I saw out there, the pilots got out, and I said, "You guys never come out here." He said, "We know why. It's barren. There's nothing out here. We're not flying out here anymore," and they didn't. But these guys would. That's part of your Blackwater, part of your civilian contractors that bring us our mail, our food. They fly ammo in those planes. There's a C-130. Our dirt strip, a 130 would come in, and they'd have a flat tire on a plane. Well, they don't carry a spare. So these guys flew in another C-130. They got a flat tire, but they only brought one spare. So guess what? That plane stayed there. Them guys, "You're not getting our spare." They jacked their plane up and took off. And they went back and got another one and came back to them. But that's a true story. And at the end, they were blowing up. We had a little bit of problem because they started moving down, working on the road. You have to understand, insurgents are only going to be where we're at. They're going to follow us. They want to stop progress for some reason. And it's not a mass force. It's some of your drug lords and things like that. But at the end, our food, everything had to come in 130s because they were blowing up our trucks. When I first got there, we were driving trucks over those old dirt roads. But once we started working on the road, now they're there. Now they're doing that. And there we are unloading food and different things we would get. That's how we got our lifeline. This is a dust storm. I told you about that dust. I'm sitting there on a Friday, which is their Sunday, a little day off, talking to the docks. I always sit on the back of the dock station, and that's what that one picture was of the docks. I should have showed you that. Little veranda. And I said, did you ever see a picture? I told Doc Stone, I said, did you ever see a picture of that sandstorm in Iraq they put on the internet? He goes, yeah. And I said, well, what's that over that mountain? Holy cow, we got up in the tower, and here comes this wall of dust. Just coming in, just like rain. Just like rain does here. Well, this is dust. And it just kept coming, getting closer. And the wind, I actually have a video where you can hear all this. And then it gets bigger and bigger. And then it just starts to overtake the PRT. You can see it come over the wall. And the mountains disappear, and you're covered in dust. So it was we didn't get a lot of those, but we did get those. And the whole time I was there, I saw rain 3 times, and all there was enough to put dots in the dust on the hoods of our Humvees where I was at. Now they would get rain in the mountains, or the snow would melt in the mountains, and it'd come down the rivers, and that's how they survive. They got all these little canals, and when the river gets up, they're taking that water, or they drill wells, and they would take that. Well, this is on our way, about a 4-day trip trying to get up into the mountains of Porchaman. And the rivers get wild. We ended up flooding out in the river. We're in the middle of the night trying to get back. Couldn't get through the rivers. It was that bad. This was a year ago exactly. This was April of last year. And that proved to be an interesting trip. Lieutenant Colonel Boyer was in charge of that, and this fine captain from Texas said, Boyer, the whole year we were here, we didn't have one mission fail. What are you doing back here? I said I couldn't cross the river. But we didn't fail. We went back and did the mission again. We had to pull back to another base camp and stay there, and then we went on and finished the mission. But he liked to harass me. He was a good guy, though. I got along well with him. You can't hardly see this. This is actually in the mountains of Porchaman. We're about at 8,000 feet elevation. Gets really cold. This is what we did. We'd pull into a police station. It's got mud walls around it. It's a mud building. And if you want to call it, I'll show you the policeman here in a little bit. But we would sleep on the ground or anywhere we could. And that's what that is. That's soldiers sleeping on the ground. I was right there in the middle. That one sleeping bag is mine. This is how we would get there, the mountains of Porchaman. I don't know if you can see that, but those are actually roads. We're going down this thing. See these roads? Just winding through the mountains. And either you were flat or you're in mountains. And we were in the mountains there. And it's an awesome grandeur, I'll tell you that, whenever it's about 2,000 feet off and those Humvees are so wide. They don't build roads through mountains. They build paths. And those Humvees barely fit through there. So it's a little, but we have to touch everybody. They have to see us. We have to talk to them. That's our mission, is to make sure they know that we're here to give you security. We're here to help you. What do you need? Talk to the government. Talk to the policemen. And that's what we're doing there. This is the inside of a Humvee. You can see all of our radio equipment, which we live on. You got satellite radio. I can go out for miles in the mountains, but my radio talks to a satellite that'll put me back to base camp, where you can't talk in these mountains with a regular radio. And that's what he's doing. He's on the radio. This is my gunner. This guy's standing up here. He's got a gun in the middle and sitting back here. I never sat here. I don't know why. I did. I took this picture, but maybe one time. I usually sit right here because I'm the mission commander. But this one, I just happened to be inside that Humvee. You can see how tight they are. It's packed in there tight. God bless the USA and the military equipment we have, because they try to make your life safe, try to give you everything you can there. And we had a lot of things. Even though we were way out there, we didn't get all the high-speed stuff right away. We did get some things that trickled into us that worked well. This is a C-17 cargo plane. Actually flew on leave, just to give you an idea what it's like to sit in there. These webbed seats all around, Humvee, pallets of cargo. These are massive planes. And you just get in that webbed seat and you fly. You can't see where you're at. No stewardesses. You might be on there for hours, but they have water and a latrine, and you can do that. But we'll fly with things like that, just massive equipment and planes. I'm trying to get into the military aspect. As NATO, we had Italian, Portuguese, Spanish, Canadians, French, all of them come through. The Italians at the end came and stayed with us. But I regret that we lost Italians, because in an IED strike, they have no protection at all. You know, if there's a roadside bomb, they're done. But they ran around in those. They're special forces Italians. This is us lined up in Humvees. If we go out in the morning, first thing we do is we go line up and fire all of our weapons to make sure your weapons are hot. So if you have an attack, you know your weapons are ready to go. And that was pretty much an everyday thing. You go out and you line up, you fire your weapons, you get ready to go out. And you can see we're all up armored Humvees. got to the point where we wouldn't drive anything but up armors. First 6 months I was there, I probably should have put one in. I was in a vehicle that wasn't up armored. And thank God that everything worked out fine and worked well. But now we use all up armors. They're there. We have enough of them. They're fine. This is that road network, the super highways you see. And thank God for GPS. If anybody uses a GPS, that's how I survived there, because that's what you see. And you take that GPS and all of our coordinates are plugged in. We already did it the night before in our recons. When we would go out for days like that, we'd start planning 3 weeks before. We had maps as big as this wall of our area, and we'd have all our routes and checkpoints, and we called back every hour. If they didn't hear us, they got teams coming out to find us. We really plan. And as leadership, we fail if we don't do that, because our soldiers depend on us to plan, to make those routes, to make those checkpoints, to save their life if we can. And as leaders, that's what we do in the military. But we would see this, and our GPS would find our way. Now, did we make a wrong turn or two? Yeah, I did. I hate to admit it. But we did. It was interesting. This is a typical site. We would stop or something, put out security, Humvee, but see the town? We didn't have any trees, any wood, so they built out of mud, and you'll see more of that. Typical day. We stop, put security out. I'm on the radio doing something like that, checking our maps, figuring out where we're at. This is what I saw, and that's what I'm trying to show you, is what I saw in Afghanistan. And that was my day. That's a typical day right there. The dust is so bad, but we're fortunate. The wind's blowing today. You can see the wind's blowing the dust off? Most of the time you couldn't see in front of you. And all you'd see is just a teacup in front of you, and that dust would be all over you by the end of the day. But those Humvees, they'll go anywhere. We use them. Typical mud brick wall, mud brick house. With our Humvees, our gunners are up. We're stopped to do something here. And that's what this military slides are meant to show, just what we looked at. That's one of those mountainsides. It's about 2,000 feet down the side of that. We're passing through a Mushkan Pass between Porchaman and that in the mountains. It was narrow and tight, and we made it. Everybody made it through okay, but it was an interesting day of Eddie Boyer's life, I'll tell you that. We're going up to that picture. I should have changed these. We're going up to that picture right here. There's actually vehicles. There's switchbacks all the way up here. There's vehicles going up there. See them going up, and we're going to the top of that mountain to cross through that pass. So that's where we're headed. When you see that, we're headed up top of that mountain. I'm actually an engineer officer. I told you I was taking the charge of the 203rd Engineer Battalion and have been most of my life. I'm a construction guy, so it fits right in. I do this every day, guys. I'm a commercial contractor, build a lot of Kentucky Frieds, work for the college, Jefferson Memorial, banks. We do a lot of that, so I fit right in here. And they know mud, brick, and straw. They've had cement in bags for 7 years. But there's no electric, there's no power companies, there's no water lines. There is a little bit in town, one or two. There's no batch plants, no asphalt. You can't go to the store and just buy that stuff, but you can buy bags of cement. And that's what I was out to teach them, and they're hungry for it. This is typical construction of government buildings before. It was a stone stacked up just as we did years ago. And they can buy rebar from Iran. They can buy steel from Iran. Iran's pretty westernized, and I was right on the Iranian border. We can get good things from Iran. I can't buy them, but those Afghans can if I contract with them. And I did. And this is typical, pouring concrete columns and stone. Then they would stack bricks up. As many of you know, if you've paid attention to old buildings, they put 3 bricks wide, just as we did in the early 1900s. And then they plaster over them, just as we did in the early 1900s. And that's exactly what they're doing today. This is in addition to our dining facility that I put on. Then they would put strips out, and I had them mixing concrete. This is pretty rich. They didn't mix like this before, but they didn't have any tools. They had a couple trowels, and they poured 2 inches of concrete, and then they want to put their tile over it. Well, we don't pour 2 inches of concrete. Then more rebar from Iran. This is a school. This is a well. They're drilling wells. This is how they drill their wells. They take that motor that's sitting down here, and they put a cable on it, and they pull these 3 legs up till they get up, and they pin them down. If you remember the old churn drills that we used to have in the 60s here, these guys said, look how they drill wells. This is ridiculous. I said, no, I remember my dad. Old man McMullen, I called him, if you're around DeSoto. And he'd sit there with that old churn drill and just sit there and let that thing hammer. And that's exactly what they do. I said, we did this in the 60s, guys, in the States. And probably even later than that in some areas. This is all there. We don't have much wood, so what they use, this is a big school in Pir Kandar going up that I'd drawn and bid and put up. And there it is. That's their concrete forms to pour the roof. They use poles. They don't have boards. You can't go to the lumber yard. They don't have those. Came out of Herat up north. So they have those poles. everything you see in this building, and they used to mix on the ground before I got there. They would mix on the ground before I got there, and I said, no, you can't control it. Concrete's control, control, control. Everything you see in that building is mixed in that mixer right there. That whole building. So that's quite a chore. And they'll work. They work hard. There the building is when it was finished, the back side of it. I don't have the front side of it in there, but that's a new school for Pierre Kandar, and they were so happy. And I'll show you the mud. There's the town. Of course, what we did is we pulled from 4 or 5 different towns, and I didn't pick this location. The civil affairs go out, they talk to them, they pick it, and then they say, Eddie, we want a building there. Okay, how many people? I designed the size of it. But this is a town called Pierre Kandar. And the Shura, the mayor of that town, was a really good guy. And the whole village was like that. They were just wonderful people. And we had the doctors there this day, you see in here. We got the Italians giving away humanitarian assistance. You can see an Italian vehicle. And the Americans, the women, they brought in lined along the wall. The men stay outside, and the docs are around here in the building. And they think our doctors are God. I mean, they'll walk for miles. If they know we're going to be there, they'll walk for miles to see an American doctor. And they believe in what we're doing. They want us to be there. This was another building, a maintenance building I built, and that's what it looked like when it was finished. Metal doors is for the city of Farah so they can start their own infrastructure, fix their roads, do things like that. But Eddie Boyer came along, and I said, guys, we know how to do this. We're smarter than this. If we take and pour a footing and put rebar in it and uprights in it, and we dig all of our footings around, and we start using concrete block, this is how you make block. They have old machines, and I didn't know. I never make concrete block. I buy them. So, just so happens the guy I was in the guard with several years ago is the general manager of Joplin Building Materials. And they have a brick plant and a block plant. So I called him up on the phone. God bless the USA. I'm on a satellite phone sitting in Farah, Afghanistan, talking to Joplin, Missouri, and I say, Kent, this is Eddie. He goes, yeah, I know. He described it. He said, those are the same machines we used to use in the 40s. We got 2 of them sitting out back. He described it. I said, yeah, they're just hand machines with molds. They mix this up and they cram it in there and make blocks. And there's nothing wrong with those machines. I said, but when you drop their block, they'll break. And boy, he chewed me out. You don't test block by dropping them. You test block with pressure. Well, he sent me some literature from the 50s that told how to make block properly. And there's all kinds of soldiers in Afghanistan, and nobody's done this. And I also call the masons I use. Well, the Masons Union out of St. Louis sent me $1,500 worth of tools and a video from 1985 that they used in their school. Sent my interpreter to town to his cousin. They have stuff here and there. You know, they're close to Iran. He converted it to a DVD. He translated it. And we passed them out like candy. Everybody, and it was perfect. Because in 1985, we just started using structural block in the early 80s. So it's not like today, all the fancy block we have. But anyway, we're making good block. We start building block buildings. And I've asked everybody around in Kabul and Herat and the big cities, is anybody using block, masonry construction? We do this every day here. Well, they couldn't find, no, we don't know. So we grouted those cells. We did bond beams. I work for architects and engineers all the time. They teach me a lot. There the building is going up. But now it's up, they want to plaster it, just like the other building. I said, no, you're not going to plaster it. Eddie Boyer's going to paint it. So they don't have rollers and poles, so I call back home again. Catherine, my wife, is sending me concrete tools. She's sending me paint tools. The post office hated to see her come in. The Carpenters Union, I got to stop. I don't have that one in there. I should put it in there. But anyway, the Carpenters Union, the business agent emailed me on the 15th of December and said, Eddie, how's it going? What do you need? Send me a hot tub. Next day he sends me back, says, how's this one? He gives me a portable hot tub. So all over Afghanistan, Farah is known because we have a hot tub with a Connex in it. And it was quite a deal. Of course, when it got to 132 degrees, nobody used it, but it was fun to say. They'd say, yeah, Farah's the country club because of Eddie Boyer. No, we're making ourselves happy, guys. You got to take care of yourself. But anyway, Catherine my wife sent me rollers and sent me things. See that Afghan up on top working? I'm showing him, I painted this first wall, and I said, this is what it's going to look like. Make sure you paint it like that. And then they took blocks and they would stack them up and put an inch of plaster on them. They wouldn't pour concrete steps and finish them the way we do. All the concrete you walk on, we take and we pour it, we finish it, and it's done. No, they stack up blocks or pour concrete, then they come back next day and put an inch of plaster. Just what we used to do in the 40s here in the States. It was too big a pour. We did the same thing. I said, no more. No more plaster for Eddie Boyer. Catherine, send me some concrete tools. So she sends me concrete tools. And once she did that, then I gave them to one contractor. Now all the contractors want them. So she's having to send all kinds of stuff. But I showed them how to pour these steps. You see what my interpreter does? He's a good, and that's an important guy to me. You got to realize I can't talk to these guys. But as a lieutenant colonel, I have my own personal interpreter every day. If I stand here and talk to you, he would be saying it in Farsi. As soon as that guy says something, he'd be saying it to me in English. So I communicated with him rather well. Got to know my interpreter good. But you can see their man jammies, or their pants, and they wore that stuff every day. That's what they worked in. And it was pretty interesting. Then I taught them, there you go. This is their typical work dress. And I taught them to rub it. They finished the first set of concrete steps. And it was great. That's fantastic. This kid right here I got to know really well, Majid. Majid worked many hours there, and his boss would leave him there. And I'd help him at the end of the day or stuff like that. But got to know a lot of the Afghans. Made good friends with a lot of them. They work hard. They're smart people. This is Abdul. Abdul's the owner of the company. These guys, this is my interpreter. This was my sergeant. And there I am. But Abdul brought his little boy in all the time with him, 3-year-old boy. And one day he gives me his hand. He's translator. He said, take him back to the U.S. with you. I said, Abdul, I got 7 children now and 3 of them in college. I can't take, especially a little one. Get out of here. But they want their kids to learn. They want them to succeed. It's just like you and I with our children. They want them to be great. And they want us to help them. This was another building going up. You see where we lived in tents. I lived in the building, but people lived in those tents too. And they're pouring concrete. This is part of our construction. Taught them to use those bond beams and blocks. And I'm standing there looking at this building one day, and this was right before I left, and I regret that. And I look down and I go, we got steel angle. We got rebar. You can get that from, we can get any size you want from Iran. I said, we can make steel bar joists. Because those buildings you see have little I-beams with 3 bricks suspended in tension. And I told them those rockets coming in on us, if they ever hit a building, the rocket's not going to kill you guys. As an engineer, I'm telling you what's going to kill you. It's going to be that roof kill you. Because they put bricks and they put 4 inches of dirt on top of it for your roofing. Your roofing is literally mud and straw. And I said, that's going to kill us. Eddie Boyer's here. We're going to pour them out of concrete. We're going to put rubber roof. We can get stuff from around. We're going to do this. So I'm standing there, and they've got this block up. And you see their scaffold. I was trying to help them with that. But anyway, I said, we can make bar joists. So I call back again. Satellite phone. God bless the USA. I call Imperial Ornamental Iron. I said, Tom, I know how to make a bar joist. So I'm going to make one, but I need a book. He sent me a design book, so I'm designing them properly. Because they're in the military system, but to have one I know that works from those guys. OSHA wasn't here, though. We didn't have OSHA. This is their scaffold. You just saw in that last picture. You take sand and dirt and you stack it up. Then you put a 55-gallon drum on it. Then you stack blocks up. But you're not tall enough. It takes a bag of lime to get you there. So you put a bag of lime on there. And voila, you got yourself a scaffold that you can lay masonry off of. You ever seen masons? They have mortar. They have blocks. It's heavy. They're moving it. That's what they built that building off of. And we can't impose OSHA standards, but I tried getting them. Showed them some old methods my dad had shown me years ago, using A-frames and different scaffolds. But here it is. I had them come to the PRT, and they could weld. Of course, this guy welded at Refrigerator Car and understands certified welding. But this guy, and that's why we need more videos, I have him welding out there. He's a welder. And he takes that welder and he goes, he's not, well, when you weld, you have to look. You got to watch your puddle. You got to, no, so I had to help him with that. I kept going, he's looking at it. But he actually sat there and you see what we're doing. If you've noticed in gymnasium, this building here probably has bar joists on it. And that's exactly what they are. So Eddie Boyer, now I got him painting it. You see the Afghans out there painting those things. Guys, we're going to learn. I'm going to show you how to do this. Voila. Instead of spanning 4 meters or 3 meters with a concrete roof and having columns all over in the middle of here, we now got steel joists that you can span 10 meters. And we can go farther. But for me right now, 10 meters is all we're going to do. So we did that with them. After we got there, this is the day I left. I didn't get to see the deck on. I stayed an extra week trying to see this thing complete. And they drug their feet. They knew Eddie was leaving, so they drug their feet and they get him out of here. But that's the day I left. That's the contractor. This one actually was built right on the PRT, and it needed to be so I could monitor it really good. This was a barracks. I'd left with that latrine being built, these two new barracks being built, and they seem to be happy. A lot of people there, because I do this for a living, guys. You don't get a lot of Army guys that are contractors that have been in business 20 years going to Afghanistan. And it was good. It gave me a purpose. It make a difference. I left here telling myself, I'm not going to live a miserable year of my life. And I told a lot of people that there that were miserable. I said, you're going to live a miserable year of your life. When you look back, guess what? That was a miserable year of your life. Or you're going to make a difference here. You're going to get to know these people. You're going to do something. And that's what we did. And this is the barracks going up. Now they're laying block, and this looks as good as we do here today, as we do in the States. These guys were using those videos. They're learning. The Masons Union sent me all those tools. We're just really teaching them how to pour concrete proper and strike it. This is the week we were leaving, all these guys left, but I stayed. And my one NCO said, well, Colonel, if you're staying, I'm staying too. So we stayed another week to work in that building. This is the day we're leaving, and this was that building you saw me painting on. This is the first block building we do that's structural concrete block. They have block, but they don't make them properly. They're weak. They fall down. Afghan engineers came in. The local engineers came when we first started building it and said, never work. I said, it'll work. We'll see. This won't work. I said, yes, it will. I'm telling you, we do this every day in the States. And it's okay to paint those block. Americans accept painted block. It's not a bad thing. So this building's done, and this Navy commander, there's actually 30 Navy guys came in on the second group. This Navy commander is giving us awards. And right there, Commander Haran, he's an 05, same as mine. And they've got this thing covered up. I didn't know what it was. So they let me cut the ribbon because this was the first building with the finished concrete stairs we're standing on, the structural block, no mud roofs. No more mud roofs in this PRT. And they pulled that thing off and they went to town and got a sign. So if you ever land on that dirt strip over on the Iranian border and you go about 200 yards into the PRT, right when you walk in the PRT, you're going to see Boyer Hall. And naturally, we had to have it with Missouri Army National Guard. It was just this sergeant, and myself for a long time. Then these three guys came in 6 months later. They were in another part of Afghanistan. They got down to us, but they're Missouri boys. And you walk and you see that. But guess what? We got a dilemma. How'd Boyer die? Yeah. You named the building after him. What happened to him? No, so this ISAF reporter, this embedded reporter, took a picture of me. And, mainly that we're Missouri Army National Guard guys and we're engineers. And we were part of Operation Enduring Freedom 6 and 7. But no, he didn't die. He just because of the structural concrete block. But that's the first thing I did. If you're going to make a memorial, something bad happened to Boyer. No, nothing bad happened to Boyer. He's alive. He did okay. This is more of the military, and we'll move on a little quicker here. I'm going to run out of time. But the Spanish we worked with, we're headed to Pir Kandar, which is a day's trip. And luckily, these guys from Texas were from East Texas. They could speak Spanish. And they could talk, and we talked to them all the time. So we'd have those guys with us. Worked with the Spanish, some couple colonels from Spain. This is Farah. This is to show you just what I saw as we're driving along here. And I'll go through these pretty quick. But you can see the mud domes and the mud walls and barren. That's what it is. The kids playing around, mud domes. This is actually a wheat field. See how it's growing there? But it's barren. When they get in the winter or they get the river up, they can flood those with canals. And there'll be enough water to grow them. Typical construction in Farah, Afghanistan, those mud domes, and they're good at it. You drive by and there's a big old mud pit, and they're out there mud and straw in a pit, and they'll shovel it out and make 1-inch blocks like this. And that's what that's built out of. They're about 30 inches thick, and they hold the heat and the cold. They work well. They're good insulators. In town, you can see a water tower over here. That's in town. We helped them build that. They're trying to get a water system for them. Better wells. This was the first month I got there. This is a school. This is a girls' school. And USAID spends millions of your tax dollars. I spent hundreds of thousands of your tax dollars. But we're talking to, and this is a different school because a female is the director of the school. And that's an odd thing. You don't do that. But that's when I first went there, I saw Bethlehem. I'd send these home, and that's what Catherine would say. You're in Bethlehem. That's what we picture that to be. But this is in town. They'll take mud buildings, and they'll put a little skim of concrete over it, and they'll paint it and make them look good. This is one of the main bazaar areas. And they have a little concrete here. It's actually just block and plaster over the top of it. And you see the corrugated tin. They got that everywhere. But the shops, they have shops. You walk down the street, and there's goats hanging there. And there's flies all over. And they shake the goat off, and they cut a piece off, and they lay it and weigh it, and they pay for it. And there they go with supper. And that's the way it works. I mean, that's typical third world country. Typical side street in Farah, Afghanistan. See that one house up there? They're getting better. There's people moving back from Iran that learned some of those Iranian things, Iranian construction techniques, and they're building some better homes. Because now that the Taliban's gone, we had thousands and thousands coming back from Iran. That's a 7-Eleven. Believe it or not, there's that little thing on the inside there. You can go in there. That's a store. I'm standing here. When we'd go out on a mission, I would go talk to somebody. Well, Civil Affairs would go. And so I'm staying in security because I didn't want to go in and talk to the governor. I'd talk to just about everybody. I'm standing outside, and this 7-Eleven's here, and you'll see later when I show you this little girl, she starts walking down the street, and I'm watching her, standing here with my weapon, and she stops right there and just stares at me the whole time, but I'll show you that. Typical mud walls. There's a typical Afghan dress, you know, with this mud roof and the Afghan flag. That's a police station. You can see that Afghan flag flying there. That's a government building in Bakwa. That's one of the poppy capitals of our area. They grew all kinds of poppy down there. The Russians left a lot behind. This is an old Russian building. So there's an old Russian hotel with a swimming pool, gas station, but you can see all the Afghans on top. Just so happens we were there that day, and here comes General Aga, the chief of police of our province, and it's a good thing because about 30 or 40 Afghan police jump out of the back of these little trucks and climb these buildings. They got machine guns. They got stuff all around us. There's nobody going to come close to us that day, that's for sure. I put this in here. This is a girls' school. We were here. We built that Darabad Bala village that you'll see in that calendar. See the goat? Everywhere we went, those goats can climb mountains. Well, they're on top of their houses. Every time we go through town, the goats are up there. And I thought, I got to have a picture of this goat up there. This is the same one you saw earlier. It's made to show you that the town, down, you don't see it back here. The town is down here. They all started falling in. I don't know how old it was. It's all falling in. They just moved up the river. There's a river over there. It's dry right now, but it moved up the river. They just started building mud huts, and voila, Pir Kandar's got a whole new town there. You drive through the other one, and it's just mud falling down. This is in the mountains of Mushkan. This river starts way up here, but they'll take and dig way up here, and this canal comes all the way. See it? And then they just spill the water out, and that's how they use all this. There's mountains on both sides so high you can't climb. But they run that water down there, and that's how they make these fields fertile. This actually is a hydro generator. They run that water down that canal, and they'd taken an old generator, made their own, and we're putting new ones in for them. But they make power, and they power the clinic, and they power a couple lights around there with that thing. And that's way up in the mountains. Trust me, it takes days to get there. This is Mushkan, the same spot, and just typical Afghan. You see the store across the street, just dirt and mud and barren. There's another shot of typical construction. Every little town you went through, there's 5 or 10 guys sitting outside and they stare at you as you go through in their mud buildings. This one, if you notice, this one's a little bit better. They were near mountains here because there's a few trees in the mountains. See how they got a flat roof? They can put trees across it. They have a dome back there in the back, but without trees you can't use a flat roof. You have to do the dome to hold the mud up. I need to go real quick here. This is just to show you who I saw. And these are police officers, and I was actually taking a picture because we're going to put a new radio in that building for the police. Well, these guys seemed trying to hurry up and get around to get in the picture. I would take a picture and show them on my digital camera, and they just had a blast with that. This same spot, this is actually a really good interpreter. Called him Teach. He was an English teacher, and he came to work for us. This guy's from USAID. Jay, a wonderful guy I worked with. He needed an engineer to help him. He spent millions of dollars helping the Afghans. That's just typical Afghan governors and things. When we would come into town, this is a boys' school, but look on the board. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. They want some money. And we're teaching them English. Well, the Americans are going to like that. Teach them English. So we were actually building them a new school at that time, but they're teaching them English. I thought that was pretty good. This is a girls' school we went to. These two girls in front are just singing. Before we left, the director had made them sing for us. These two girls are singing their heart out, and these are just their backup. I couldn't understand it, but it sounded really good. And they sang their heart out for us. This is the street Jay and I walked down to get there. This is their sewer. And man, it was bad. It was quite a deal. But that girls' school's right through there on the right. This is in a little place called Anadar. You drive through flat country for 5 hours, and there's mountains. There's a little river right through the middle of those mountains, and it's green. And that's where they live. Wherever there's water, that's where they live. Or they pump it. That's down in Bakwa. Typical guy. This guy is an attorney. This is where they sit around. That's the government building in Bakwa, which Bakwa had a lot of problems while we were there because that's where all the poppy's at. Little town called Taj. Typical Afghan right there. This guy is head of the school there in Balabaluk, where that Russian hotel and all that stuff was. There's a good shot there. That's that girls' school. That goat was right up on top of that building, and I took a picture of those girls. You know that Afghans did not wear burqas until the Taliban. And I guarantee you those girls have blue jeans and high heels underneath those burqas. They do. There's the school right there. The goat's up on the side. The little girl's right there. We were passing out radios and different things I really liked. The civil affairs was. I built, you'll see in this calendar that I represent the United States on the calendar in Afghanistan. And I don't know how I got there, but out of all the troops there, Eddie Boyer, DeSoto Boy's on the calendar there. And right outside it, it's standing in a community center I built right outside of this very school right here. I didn't build it, I was contracting. This kid right here was my interpreter. It's very important to construction. First few months I'm there, I'm trying to talk construction. And I'm only as good. I don't know what this guy's saying. Well, guess what? He doesn't either, because he doesn't understand construction. If I talk to you about 6-sack concrete, and oh yeah, we need to use number 4 bars, and we need them 2 foot on center, and you know, a lot of people would say, what? Well, that's what my interpreter's doing. So I took this kid. This kid was really good. He got there a week before I did, and I didn't realize it. I actually called back here and tried getting him a scholarship back. Not a scholarship here. I tried getting a scholarship through our Contractors Association. He ran fastest out of anybody in the PRT when we had races. He played soccer every day. I wanted him to come back and be an engineer. The deal was, you come back here, you do Jefferson College, get started, go to school, and you go back to Afghanistan. You're not coming to live in the U.S. You're going back to make a difference. You're going to do what I'm doing. We need educated people in Afghanistan to survive. Education makes everything. And if you know, but I tried getting this kid back. He worked with me till about 2 months before I left, and he lived in Kabul, and he'd gotten married and went back to Kabul. But I called, and I got online. We put his application. We tried getting him back here. This is inside that dining facility. Made good friends with these guys that worked all the time. They got to know me well. They liked me. I showed them how to do stuff. These are orphans. We built an orphanage. And just kids wanting to survive. These are government officials. That's a civil affairs guy I worked with there next to me. But just Afghans. I don't know why he was holding his head, but that little kid just made a good picture there. He's, what's going on here when all these Humvees pull up? This is that little girl I told you about that walked right up beside me, and she just stood there like that. She stood there for half an hour, just staring at me while I'm standing with my weapon. You know, I can't walk over and talk to her. You try to avoid people, even though she's little, but it wouldn't matter, but you don't do that. This guy calls himself Qayyum the Democrat. His name's Qayyum. I've been emailing him, trying to get him back here. I'll show you one interpreter we have that his father was killed by the Russians. After the Taliban, they became prominent. His uncle was, not this guy, another guy. His uncle was president of a college in New York, and last March he came back. So a RIF, the interpreter, can come back on a visa, I know. If I can get Qayyum to come back, he's a contractor. I want to take him to the unions in St. Louis, to the buildings, show him how we do construction, send him back to Afghanistan so he knows what he's doing instead of people having to show him. The other one's Ahmad Shah Barak. And they all laugh about, they all have the same names. Well, so do I. There's 5 Ed Boyers in DeSoto. They were laughing about that. They're all Mohammed, or I said, how many? There's 5 Ed Boyers in DeSoto. My dad's Joe Boyer. There's 5 Joe Boyers. You know, what's the difference between them and us? There's not. This is just a good picture of a guy in a building we're doing. This is a RIF. This guy speaks English really clear, really good guy. So when his father was killed by the Russians, he's been to the U.S. one time, they lost all of his bags. He brought rugs, he brought everything. He was so happy last March, I'll never forget it. So happy to leave and go to the U.S. And I told him, I said, you know New York is not the United States. The United States is in Missouri. You need to come see the United States in DeSoto, Missouri. So I'm trying to get him here. And this is the Japanese ambassador that was just happened to be down with us. Not many people came out to us because they get stuck. They couldn't fly. Flights don't fly due to weather, sandstorms, whatever. And once you got there, it was just, they were stuck for weeks with us. Typical Afghan dress. That's me out one day. I talk to all the leaders of the villages. That's what I do. These are 2 interpreters. This was Hayter, the one I told you I wanted to bring back here to Jeffco and didn't get to. This is Russell. We're in the mountains where that river was. And the sergeant's saying, we can't cross that river, sir. I said, we can't stop the mission. We got to go. We can't cross that river. I said, we can cross that river. Next thing you know, Russell, he's just a local, these are local Afghans that we hire, that they can speak English. Russell jumped in that river, and that river had to be 150 feet across. He waded that river, found a way through, and goes, come on, sir, bring him on down this way. These guys, and he's an Afghan. He didn't have to. All he had to do was sit in that Humvee, but he didn't. They were really good people. This is a school. Faces of Afghan. This guy was a superstar. And his whole village liked him. Just good personality, the whole town. You go into town, you know. I wave at everybody I saw there. I waved at every one of them. And not a one of them waved at me in some towns. You know this is not the place to be. We know where they're at. This guy's an engineer. You can see he lives a construction life. He lives a little better. Look at his stomach. He eats really well. These other guys don't get to eat that good. He gave me rugs. He gave me all kinds of things. This guy, the doctors were there. This guy walked for miles to bring this kid to see that doctor. And walk with his little girl. American doctors to them are God. And they are. God bless the USA and our medical system, even though we doubt it. Everywhere we went, they wanted to kill a goat. They wanted to feed us, and I wouldn't do it. Finally, this guy knew the doctors were there that day. He didn't even ask me. I'm up on the roof. I didn't put those pictures in here. I looked down, and they bring the goats to you live, so you can see that they're alive, that they butcher them for you. And they would butcher those goats. I'm standing on the roof and look down. They got 2 goats laying on the doors that we're going to put in the school, butchering them. They take them down and cook them. They make very good bread called naan. Curdled goat's milk is yogurt. And then they take and make shawah, which is goat mixed in with tomatoes or whatever. I've eaten a lot of goat. It's not too bad either. But their bread is really good. If you look in Sauce Magazine, they interviewed me and I got a picture of our guys having a widow woman make these breads and round pies instead of oval, make naan. And then on Saturdays, they would make their own pizza sauce and save the sausage and that from breakfast and find some cheese. And we had pizza. And you can't, no alcohol in country, but we had O'Doul's. So we'd have real fake beer and pizza on Saturday night in Afghanistan. This is in Porchemon, way up in the mountains, and these kids followed me all along. There's one kid right here, followed me up that mountain. We walked about 7 clicks to look to put in a hydroelectric dam, a small one. And he kept saying, Mr., Mr., 1, 2, 3, Mr., Mr. That's all he knew in English, but he wouldn't tell me he knew English. This is the provincial governor and the chief of police. That's typical Afghans you see out there. There's where I went and put the micro hydro dam, and there's that kid. He was right behind me. He was happy. I was trying to talk to him all the way. I told you we stayed in the police station. There's the policeman. That's the police station where we slept that night. Typical Afghan police. Some of them wear uniforms. Some of them don't. I think he's got an AK-47 sticking out here. Weapons. But we had gotten up that morning, and to watch the Americans everybody wanted to watch the Americans, what they're doing, what they have. You know, and they'd sit there and watch us. It's about 6 in the morning. After that one picture you saw us laying, all them sleeping bags laying on the ground, that's where we were at right there in the police station. That's Abdul on top of the roof, the one that wanted to give me his little boy. This is where we made our pizza at night. My sergeant, that's our tower underneath there. But I was a part of 2 operations. So in April, I'd been there since October. In April, I stand there and 100 people leave. Everybody I'd been working with. And here comes this new group in. I don't know any of them. 30 Navy guys and that. But I go up here every morning. I'm up at 4:30 in the morning. No problem. I make coffee. So I walk up those steps you see right there, and that's a guard tower. Machine gun and everything up there. I had 2 cups of coffee, and it's about 6 in the morning by then. Open the door, and there's this young kid in there, about 18 years old. I'm talking to him. I look, I go, you're Navy. Because we only had a couple Navy docs with us. We didn't have 30 Navy guys with us doing this stuff. He goes, yeah. So you want coffee? Yeah, we're sitting there talking. He tells me he joined the Navy in December to see the world. And in April, he's sitting in a tower in Afghanistan. He's not going to see much. I said, you're not going to see much of the world here. Really good kid. I went to Fort Leonard Wood about 3 weeks ago. God bless the USA. I picked up the Defense Network. I called for Afghanistan. Who answered the phone? But him. And I can't call his name right now, but if you'd have heard him hollering, Colonel Boyer, because I was with them 6 months too. So it was really fun to be able to sit in Fort Leonard Wood and talk to Farah, Afghanistan. This is Majid. Keep showing this kid. They did these buildings. They did hospital buildings for me. We ran power through the hospital. We put in water towers. Did a lot of work. Just a good kid. Good kid. I gave him a lot of things. Taught him a lot. These are just more faces of Afghanistan. Just kids. There's the hat. I've got things up here. The man jammies they give me. They wear these little hats. They tie turbans around them. Different things like that. This is in Mushkan. And it just so happened one of the leader's sons had been murdered a month before, and they just found him that day, and we didn't realize what was happening. We pulled in this town. We had a vehicle breakdown, and we're stuck in the mountains, literally 2 mountains, days away from anybody. No way anybody's going to get to us if something happens. And they're all mad, and they're all coming in. And that's what we're doing, is setting them down, trying to figure out what's going on. Well, they're mad because they want more security. They want more help. We don't come to the mountains enough. We don't help them. They're wanting more. They want us to help them. They want help. This was a building. This is a director of communications. We built a new communication center so they have satellite. They can start getting a phone system. If you watch History Channel, which I do a lot, They claim that one of the things that stopped train robberies and all that was our communications got better. Because when people started to rob them, they could call and find out where they're at. Okay, he just passed here. The better communications they have, the better off they are. This is a little female there is actually a U.S. citizen that's working for USAID that paid for that building. USAID paid for it. There's their water tower on top. This is a mosque, the Grand Mosque in the city of Farah. That's a building that they have in there where they wash their feet. Before they go in, they wash their feet, and that's what we're trying to do. We were going to refurbish the mosque. We can't spend a lot of money on that, but there's certain things we can spend money on for a mosque. It comes to sanitation and things like that, we can do that. We don't actually build their mosque, but we can build latrines for them and sanitation for them and make it better. This female right here, her name's Gina. She's a Canadian soldier, retired, an embedded reporter with us. And did well, this little kid. That's a big education center that I'd put in, solar power. Got tired of giving them generators. This building, I didn't get to see it complete, but I got enough money to put solar power in there. Put a windmill up so they got alternative wind power and 100 days of wind. I put in computer systems and a satellite because this is the director of education that can get curriculum from Kabul or from wherever right there to Farah. God bless the technology we have today. And that was, I didn't get to see it done. This is a canal right outside, and we built this whole wall. This canal literally floods this whole area. I had to build that building real high. This is that engineer I showed you. Or a little earlier, it's in a picture. He eats very well. He's a construction guy. Just more dress. You can see Rahmani is his name. And Bazir Rahmani. And he actually dresses like that when they pour concrete. There he is again. He's the contractor building these buildings. This is one guy, you can still see his pants are a little bit big, but I showed him that Dad had taught me how to use a different wood scaffold, and they can't get wood, but a little safer than the concrete blocks and the other things. Even though you don't see that today, OSHA wouldn't approve it. I know it works. This is at the hospital, some guys building some different things that I was in there, and we're always a spectator. I mean, we're always a spectator sport because everywhere we go, they line up. Just kids or anybody will watch the Americans and see what we're doing. Two little girls, just a guy walking along, and we're looking at a school, and you see they dress good. They actually have earrings, almost diamond earrings and things like that in there. And we won't go into the whole female thing in Afghanistan, but that's their culture. You know, that's what they do. And that's all I have. I'm a little bit over here by about 10 minutes. But I have a few things here from Afghanistan. This is actually the dress. This was made for me, a man dress that they wear. And I can't take anything, but I had concrete tools. I said, I'm military. But I'll trade you these concrete tools for what you brought me. So he said, okay, I had this made just for you. I mean, he measured me up a few weeks before and all that. And they made me a pair of pants. They really did. Those are made for me. And what they do is they take this belt, and they cinch them up. And if you look in the pictures, they're just loose and baggy. But every man, because Ahmad Shah Barak, those two contractors, Barak's the one that gave it to me, and they gave him those concrete tools. But he opened up, he pulls his man dress up, and he goes, see, you cinch it up all the way around, and it's just all bunched up all the way around. But those were made for me. Those were all thick. This is an expensive dress. This is what you would wear on Sunday. I didn't bring a turban. I got to tying turbans pretty good, too. But they wear this. You saw that hat? Or they'll put their turban around it. And one contractor wore a gray dress turban every day. But the other ones would just wear white or things like that. You know, different. Mujahideen wore a wool hat, mainly in the mountains. And they if you know the CIA, the Mujahideens who defeated the Russians. And the Russians actually hurt Afghanistan a lot, but they did build some things. But this was a Mujahideen hat. And as I mentioned, I like to brag a little bit here. I'm losing my mic here. There's I made friends with the docks all the time. We played golf there. I didn't put those pictures in. Actually, we didn't have a golf course. We put one hole out here with a carpet and hole in it, and we'd hit out of the mortar pits. We'd hit off the ammo bunkers. We'd just change our tee box around. And it's in gravel, so my wife sent me little carpets. But anyway, you know, everything was in the east, and we were all in the west, and this is from regional west. And ISAF is NATO, International Security Assistance Force. And this Afrin, this Navy doctor, emails me and says, we got calendars, and December just makes me sick. Afrin, what are you talking about? I got to know him well over there because you spend a lot of time with people, and there's only 100 of you in 2 football fields. You know each other very well. Well, each country is represented here, and they've got the flag, and they show them giving out humanitarian assistance, training police, Iceland, dog sniffing for bombs, they go through all this. The Italians, we had 75 special forces, and she's passing out this ISIF newspaper to get the word out, what's happening, because people don't know. And the burqas, as I told you, they're wearing jeans and that underneath that. Canada, that C-130 flight, those Canadian pilots are good guys. I flew with them. Didn't fly a lot because I was stuck out there. But typical barren, desolate Afghanistan country. But anyway, in December, they're each flagged. The United States, there's 18,000 Americans in Afghanistan. And this DeSoto boy, Eddie Boyer, standing right here representing the United States in December on a calendar all over Afghanistan. That's my interpreter. This is a Navy engineer taking my place. That girls' school with the goat on it's right on the other side of this mud wall. And this is a new civic center for the community so they can hold community meetings and that there. So I better quit. I'm way over. I'd talk for hours. I'll be here for a few minutes if you want to look at something, and I thank you very much.
You may not know their names, but the students who are helped through a Jefferson College Foundation scholarship carry thanks in their hearts. It's for the kindness that our contributors have shown. Make a difference in their tomorrows.
Education, the great equalizer. It doesn't just mean you get more knowledge, it means you improve your quality of life.
Give to the Jefferson College Foundation today.
Great education.
Friendly atmosphere.
Beautiful campus.
The convenience and the affordability.
My experience at Jefferson College has been wonderful.
I find the quality of education here at Jefferson College to be one of a kind.
My experience at Jefferson College has been a major plus in my life and one of the best decisions I've made.
Jefferson College would be the place that I would recommend the most.
I'm Katie Williams.
I'm Kevin Higginbotham.
I'm Ann Martinson.
I'm Tony Markovich, and I'm proud I chose to attend Jefferson College.